Hello, you beautiful people. So today I wanted to talk about a few things that you got to get used to if you're going to be moving or coming to Peru. Now, this applies to almost everywhere. I would say probably Lima is one of the only places where this doesn't necessarily apply, but some of it still does. However, anywhere else, which is pretty much where all of the tourist locations are, this is some stuff you're going to have to get used to. So first and foremost, the first thing that you're going to have to get used to is nothing ever happens on time at the time that it says it's going to happen. That doesn't mean you shouldn't be there on time. That just means that a good majority of the time things start later than they say. I think around here a lot of people run late, so they kind of compensate that by either moving times forward or they just expect that people are going to show up late, so they give themselves some free time on the front or back end. However, you're just going to have to get used to it. You might show up for a tour bus or you might show up for an appointment of some kind and find that you are waiting because everything is running late. Now, this isn't always the case. I would say it's about 90% of the time the case. And that 10% of the time, those people aren't waiting for you. They're just going. So it's really difficult because 90% of the time you're going to be waiting. 10% of the time you'll actually be on time. But if you miss it, you miss the thing entirely. I think it really depends on who you're dealing with, where they're from. Like, I find people from Lima they call them Limanians. The Limanians that are in certain areas, they tend to run more on time. Tend to. Not always, and it's not across the board, but they tend to run more on time. Other things like doctors and dentists, it's really a toss-up. I go to a dentist in Cusco with my partner. He seems to run very much on time. Other things that I've been to that are health related haven't necessarily. And then there are some places that don't even do appointments at all, and you just show up or bring your dog, and it's like they take them immediately. So yeah, it's really interesting. The next thing you're going to have to get used to, this is if you're not going to be just eating out at restaurants. This is going to be if you're planning on cooking your own meals in like an Airbnb, or you're renting a home for a month or a couple weeks and you want to cook your food. Meat. In most places, not all places, but most places, they don't sell packaged meat. Cusco, anything city-like, they're going to have it, kind of like what you're used to in Costco, Walmart, Target, any of those, Aldi, whatever or Lidl, whatever, all of the grocery stores in the U.S., those, or other countries even. That kind of meat packaging doesn't really happen here outside of the bigger cities. So if you're in a less well-established area, you're going to be buying meat from the market, and it's going to be hanging raw, and somehow it stays cold even though it's out in open air. But yeah, you're going to be buying meat that's not packaged, and you're going to have to tell them exactly what cut you want. It's not like, you walk through and you just point. There's going to be a whole chicken, let's say, and you're going to want the thighs. You're going to have to tell them they want the thighs. They butcher the whole thing and take the thighs out, take 4 more chickens out, butcher the thighs out, and put the rest away for the next person that wants a different cut that isn't the thighs. And I assume, although I don't do this because I tend to be rather particular on my cuts of meat, and it's not really that expensive. I think in a month we spend maybe, let's see, 60, 120, 240 soles, which divided by 4, so $60 essentially per month on meat. That's somewhere around like 3 kilos a week. So that's like 6 pounds of chicken a week. Maybe that's a little high on the amount. Maybe it's like 5 or 4 kilos, but still. No, maybe it's like 2 or 3. Yeah, maybe it's 4 to 6 pounds of chicken a week for what, $15 or so. It's not bad at all. It's really not bad. So yeah, that's majority of how I get my meat, but you have to get used to buying and pointing out specific cuts. It's not so difficult when it comes to the chicken, but when it comes to like beef, there are lots of cuts that you could want, and that's where it gets a little bit more tricky. I haven't really done that much. Normally when I go to the meat and pork station, I have a specific thing that I'm asking for that's not like the cut, because I don't necessarily know the cuts, but I might need like pork belly. So I'll ask for something that's got a lot of fat and salt, so I can like render it and make food with it. but it depends. It really depends. And the last thing, to keep this video short, that you're really gonna have to get used to is, if you're not in the city, you're probably gonna be doing a lot of walking. I found that in a lot of cities and towns here, cities is a strong word, in a lot of towns and villages here, most people walk most places. You can take motos, they're not that expensive, but for the most part, local wise, it's usually better to walk places unless it's kind of far. But going from place to place in moto, it adds up quick, and it just doesn't work. So for example, when we go to Urubamba or Pisac or any other town, even Cusco sometimes, we try to plan out where we're going and we walk the entire town, the whole thing. We don't take motos. Maybe we'll take a moto in, and then we'll figure out what we got to do, and then take a moto out. But all of the looking for things inside the actual town, you're gonna do by foot, so you're gonna have to get used to that. And kind of a part of this last piece is it is high altitude here. So when you're doing a lot of walking in the Sacred Valley or in Cusco and certain parts of Peru, it's high altitude, so you're kind of dealing with less oxygen as well. So it can get more tiring than you would normally be. So you might be able to do a 3-mile walk in the US, no problem, across New York. But once you get here to where the altitude's higher, the 3-mile walk is a lot more daunting. It's not that it's impossible, you could definitely do it, but you're gonna get more tired more quickly. There are lots of other things, but those are some things you're gonna have to prepare yourself for if you're coming here. None of them are that bad, and none of them are really that hard to navigate. But just to keep in mind, if you are coming, maybe if you're going somewhere, maybe bring something that you can do while you're waiting, like bring a book. If you are a big meat eater, maybe study up on your cuts of meats. And if you're not a big walker and you're coming here, start preparing by doing some walks in your own town to kind of get ready. There are tons of tips I have, and I'll share more in my other videos, but YouTube knows you really well. So if you check this video out right here, YouTube thinks it's perfect for you. So check it out and either prove YouTube right or wrong, but I'm sure YouTube will be right, because they almost always are. Otherwise, right down here is a little bubble. If you click that, we can stay in contact, and you can see more of my tips, tricks, hacks, and other things that I have to say about Peru, because I live here full time. And I'll see you soon.